People act like leg lengthening surgery is this miracle fix. Just break your legs and boom, you're desirable. But I've got 4 reasons why I would never do it. First off, and I think this should go without saying, it's risky, insanely expensive, completely debilitating, and it hurts like hell. First, let's talk about the cost. Now, from what I've heard, the price of leg lengthening surgery in a first world country runs anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000 for both legs just to get a few inches, maybe 3 to 6 at the absolute max. Now, there are people that say, oh, just go to Turkey or go to Mexico. And they have these sketchy, unregulated cosmetic surgeons in these places. And I don't know about you, but I watched a YouTube documentary about cosmetic surgeons in Turkey. And there's a literal epidemic of Europeans and Americans going over there to get all kinds of cosmetic surgery and having a completely botched result. I mean, we're talking your face ruined forever, going blind. And in the case of leg lengthening surgery, you might not be able to walk again. And if you think, oh, well, I can just sue and it'll make my life worthwhile, think again, because those places, they are known to just shut their doors and go AWOL and never be seen again, and then open up under a different name a year later, and you'll never find them. The Turkish government doesn't care. Even in first world countries with this surgery, it carries a pretty significant risk of failure. Now, I will admit that it has been proven in statistics that people who are taller earn more money over the course of their life, and every additional inch equates to an extra like $2,000 a year. That's adjusted for inflation because the original study was done in like 2009. But if we're talking about spending $120,000 at a young age, putting you out of work for 6 months to 2 years even for both legs if you're doing them separately, having to pay for care or have a family member, what kind of family member is going to want to take that burden on to have to take care of you bedridden for a year? You got to take the opportunity cost of that into consideration. What about that whole year that you could have been accomplishing things? You could have been working, you could have been going to school, doing all kinds of things with that time, and instead you're wasting a year of your life in bed. So when you calculate all the opportunity costs, the pain, the burden, the debt, the loss of time, and imagine if you have to go into debt for this and you have to pay interest to pay this off. I mean, if you really think about it, the benefit of those few extra inches aren't really going to be worth your while, you know? I see a lot of these people commenting on my TikToks saying, bro, just get leg lengthening surgery, bro. It's not a casual thing. People don't realize how extreme this is. Now, second, and this is the part that most people just gloss over, it doesn't actually fix your proportions. Now, sure, there are some people out there who have a disproportionately long torso, long arms, big hands, big feet, but their legs are short. And if they extend the legs, it'll fix their whole body proportions and make them taller. And in that case, I would say that you're a good use case for leg lengthening surgery. But don't delude yourself. Don't look in the mirror and try to convince yourself that you do have that or that it would make you look better. Because in reality, 99% of people have proportional bodies. And if you go and you lengthen your leg, you're going to look weird. Now, if you're 5'3.5" like me, you've got little hands, you've got size 7 girl feet, you've got short arms and narrow shoulders, like under 16-inch bidelt, small rib cage. None of that stuff is going to be fixed by leg lengthening surgery. And you're going to think, wow, I'm still that inferior little manlet I always was. And you're going to wish day after day after day that there was a surgery of some kind to lengthen everything proportionally. And maybe there will be someday. So I think that's yet another reason not to go through with this primitive, barbaric surgery. Reason 3, and this might sound harsh, but I see it as genetic fraud. Now, if both your parents are short and you have a genetic lineage of being short and you go and get this surgery, you still have those short genes. And if you go off and find a girl who would not have dated you otherwise and you have children with her and the children end up short, she's going to wonder what's going on. And if she ever finds out that you got that surgery, you bet it's going to affect the way she thinks of you. Now, maybe some girls aren't interested in having kids, but most of them are. And the vast majority of the time, they want their kids to be attractive and tall. And it does a disservice to those future generations too, because what you're doing is you're artificially altering your body so that you can pass on your genes when natural selection would have weeded you out. And you're just pushing the problem on to the next generation and the next generation. And people do that with their face too. And it's a serious problem because over the course of many generations, if this becomes more and more common, you're going to have bad genes being passed on more and more frequently until we get to a point where eventually society might break down. And when that happens, people won't have access to surgery anymore. People won't even have access to modern medicine anymore. And people are going to be suffering horrible consequences of the shortcuts of their forefathers. They'll have genes that never should have existed in the first place that prevent them from being effective at basic survival. And they'll look to the sky, curse you, my ancestors, you put me in this situation, damn you to hell. All through my teen years, I was basically driven completely insane by the insecurity and self-hatred and body shaming that I experienced. Hearing girls obsess over tall guys, talk about how a girl needs a tall man, he's short and weak, and say stuff like short men are worthless and inferior and they should go die. Stuff like that. And it really got into my head. Some people are actually stunted by chemicals like I was. I stopped growing when I was 12. I should have been 5'10". That's what the doctor predicted. 5'9" or 5'10". I ended up 6 inches shorter than that. Now, in that case, it's not actually genetic fraud if you get the surgery. But for some reason, even back then, when I was so extremely insecure about myself and my body, I still didn't want the surgery. I considered it, but then I thought, that's not natural. I wanted natural selection to run its course. I exposed myself to all kinds of germs, all kinds of dangerous situations, because I felt that if I was meant to exist, I would be able to survive this situation. And that's the perfect segue to reason number 4. This last reason, it's personal, and it's probably not what you would expect. I enjoy being towered over. I like seeing people, especially women, tower head and shoulders above me. I love feeling inferior to them. I love feeling talked down to by them. I love looking up at them. And I wouldn't get to experience that if I had gotten that surgery. A lot of people think I'm joking, but I'm not. People say, oh, that's cope. You know what? It is cope, but it's a good cope. And it happened involuntarily because I was there and I was ready in November of 2015 after 5 years of misery and anguish and insecurity. I was ready to re-roll and reincarnate right in that very moment. Something snapped in my brain, and that feeling of inferiority went from being a source of intense anguish and misery to a source of pleasure and euphoria. The nightmares I had every night of getting called to the front of the class, standing next to a tall girl and having to say something to the class and having everybody laugh at me because of how small I am, those dreams went from being nightmares to wet dreams. And it all happened involuntarily in a matter of a few seconds. And I believe that there's something instinctual, prehistoric in my brain, this self-preservation instinct, that when you're in a situation where you're at a position at the lowest level of the totem pole, it becomes such a miserable experience. Because the pain and pleasure centers are next to each other, it makes a switch where it turns you into a masochist so that you can cope and survive. And potentially, because I like tall women now, I might be able to pass on my genes and my children will be taller because I'll be passing on my genes with a taller woman. It's part of my identity now. I don't want to be an alpha like I used to be. The only downside is that when I encounter guys that are shorter than me, I actually get jealous. I genuinely wish I was smaller because I like being towered over as much as possible. And I want to find a tall woman who thinks I'm genuinely attractive and we would have a great life together. I'd rather be loved for who I am physically than something fake. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. It is absolutely not for me. And if you're considering it, you need to think deeply about what I said in this video today before going through with it. It's just sad to me that women and our society push people to feel the need to do something like this in the first place. This is why I talk about height. Not to complain, but to be real about what mainstream SJWs refuse to acknowledge. And if you're interested in learning how heightism hides in our everyday language, check out this video here. 5 everyday phrases that prove heightism is everywhere. And I'll see you in the next one.